The cargo ship Rusty Bucket tumbled out of hyperspace like a drunk person falling off a bar stool. Captain Sarah Chen rubbed her eyes and looked at the navigation screen. Nothing looked familiar. The stars were wrong, the planets were in weird places, and her GPS was showing error messages in 3 different languages. "Well, that's not good," she said, taking a sip of cold coffee from a mug that said, "World's okayest captain." Engineer Rodriguez poked his head up from behind a control panel where he had been trying to fix the coffee machine for the past 6 hours. "Did we make the jump to Proxima Station?" "Nope. We're somewhere else entirely. Somewhere very, very else." Rodriguez shrugged and went back to hitting the coffee machine with a wrench. "As long as we're not dead, I guess it's fine." Communications Officer Park was busy taking selfies by the window. "Hey guys, check this out. There are like 1 million giant crystal ships out there. They look pretty cool, I guess." Chen looked out the window and saw exactly what Park had described. Enormous ships that looked like they were made of purple and blue crystals surrounded them. Each ship was the size of a small city and covered in scary-looking weapons. The ships had arranged themselves in what was clearly a battle formation designed to make anyone looking at them wet their pants in terror. "Huh," Chen said. "That's different." The radio crackled to life with a voice that sounded like gravel being mixed in a blender. "Attention, primitive vessel. You have entered the sacred space of the Zephyrian Dominion. Prepare to face the wrath of Thekatar the Merciless. Your species will kneel before our might, or be reduced to cosmic dust." Chen picked up the radio microphone. "Hi there. Sorry to bother you. We're just passing through. Do you happen to know if there are any decent truck stops around here? We're getting low on snacks, and our coffee machine is broken." There was a long silence on the radio. "What?" the voice finally asked. "Truck stops. You know, places where travelers can get food, fuel, maybe use a clean bathroom. Our last stop was 3 systems ago, and Park ate all the good granola bars." "Hey, those were communal granola bars," Park said, not looking up from her phone where she was posting pictures of the crystal ships with captions like "Weird space traffic jam" and "Probably late for work now." Admiral Thekatar the Merciless stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the communications panel like it had personally insulted his mother. In his 300 years of conquering star systems, he had never encountered a response like this. Species usually responded to his arrival with screaming, begging, or at least some kind of fear. These creatures were asking about snacks. "Sir," his second-in-command whispered, "perhaps they do not understand the gravity of their situation." Thekatar activated the radio again. "Foolish beings! I am Thekatar the Merciless, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, destroyer of the weak, bringer of eternal darkness. You will surrender immediately or face annihilation." Chen turned to Rodriguez. "Does this guy sound like he's trying really hard to be scary to you?" "Yeah, he's got that whole dramatic villain thing going on. Very theatrical. I bet he practices those speeches in the mirror." Chen keyed the radio again. "Look, Mr. the Merciless, I'm sure you're very important and scary and all that, but we're just cargo haulers trying to make a living. We've got a schedule to keep, and frankly, this whole kneel before me thing is kind of holding us up. Are there tolls for using this space? Because if there are, we need receipts for our taxes." The alien admiral felt something he had never experienced before. It might have been confusion. It might have been an aneurysm. His reputation for striking fear into the hearts of entire civilizations was being treated like a customer service. "Complaint? Tolls?" he managed to ask. "Yeah, you know, fees for using the space lanes. Some systems charge for passage. Others have free highways but expensive parking. What's your setup here?" Park looked up from her phone. "Also, do you guys have Wi-Fi? I'm trying to upload these photos, but the signal out here is terrible." Thekatar turned to his communications officer. "What is a Wi-Fi?" "I believe it is some form of primitive data transmission, sir." "Sir," another officer interrupted, Our scanners are detecting something unusual about their vessel." "What kind of unusual?" "Well, sir, their ship appears to be held together with some kind of metallic tape, and their reactor is running on what our computers can only identify as caffeine and stubborn determination." Thektar looked at the readings. The human ship was indeed a disaster. It was old, patched with mismatched parts, and should have fallen apart years ago, but somehow it was not only functional, it had just completed a hyperspace jump that should have been impossible with their technology. "How are they even alive?" he muttered. Chen's voice came over the radio again. "Hey, sorry to keep bothering you, but our engineer wants to know if you guys need any help with your ships. He noticed that your engines are running kind of rough. Might want to check your coolant levels." Rodriguez had indeed been looking at the crystal ships through a pair of binoculars. "Those are some nice ships, but whoever built them doesn't know much about proper maintenance. Look at the way that exhaust is glowing. That's either a coolant leak or they're about to have a very bad day." "Should we tell them?" Chen asked. "Might be the neighborly thing to do." Thektar was now experiencing what could only be described as a complete breakdown of everything he thought he knew about the universe. These primitive creatures were not only unafraid of his mighty fleet, they were offering mechanical advice. "Get me a full scan of their species," he barked at his science officer. "I want to know everything about these humans." "Sir, preliminary scans indicate they are from a planet called Earth. They appear to be a relatively young species, but the data is confusing." "Confusing how?" "Well, sir, they seem to have developed space travel despite having a complete disregard for safety protocols. Their ships regularly operate beyond safe parameters, their crews work in conditions that should kill them, and they appear to fix serious mechanical problems by hitting things with primitive tools." "That's impossible." "Yes, sir. Yet, here they are." Chen's voice interrupted his thoughts again. "Listen, we really do need to get going. Our delivery is already late, and the customer gets cranky when we're behind schedule. Could you maybe point us toward the nearest space highway? We're looking for something that goes in the direction of the Orion Arm." "Also," Park added over the radio, "do any of your ships have good restaurants? We've been eating nothing but protein bars and instant noodles for 2 weeks." Thektar sat down heavily in his command chair. In all his years of conquest, he had reduced entire civilizations to rubble with nothing more than a threatening speech and an impressive fleet formation. These humans were treating his unstoppable war machine like a minor inconvenience and asking for dining recommendations. "Sir," his first officer asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Thektar stared at the small, pathetic human ship floating in the middle of his battle formation like a lost tourist asking for directions. I need a moment to think." 3 hours later, the humans found themselves aboard the Zephyrian flagship. This was not by choice, but it was not exactly against their will either. The aliens had used something called a tractor beam to pull their ship into the landing bay. Chen had spent the entire time asking Rodriguez if they could build one of those for hauling broken-down cargo containers. The Zephyrians had expected the humans to be terrified when they were brought aboard the massive warship. Instead, Chen immediately asked if she could get the Wi-Fi password and whether the aliens had a bathroom she could use. Park started taking pictures of everything and asking guards to pose with her. Rodriguez found the ship's engine room within 10 minutes and started a conversation with the maintenance crew about proper lubrication techniques. "This is not how conquest usually goes," muttered Commander Vexhall, who had been put in charge of processing the humans. The processing chamber was designed to be intimidating. The walls were black metal covered in sharp spikes. Red lights flashed ominously. The ceiling was too high and filled with shadows. Most species brought here would be reduced to gibbering terror within minutes. Chen sat at the interrogation table, filling out paperwork with the enthusiasm of someone renewing their driver's license. Question 15 asks about my species' technological level. Do you want me to put down what we're supposed to have, or what we actually have? because there's a big difference. What do you mean? Vexhall asked. Well, according to the manual, our hyperspace drive should only work within a 30 light-year radius. But Rodriguez hit it with a hammer last month, and now it goes wherever it wants. We're not really sure how. Vexhall made a note on his tablet. And question 16 asks about your species' military capabilities. Oh, we don't really have those. I mean, Earth has armies and stuff, but they're busy with Earth problems. The rest of us are just trying to make a living hauling cargo. Although Rodriguez did mount a nail gun on our ship after we had some trouble with space pirates. A nail gun? Yeah, it shoots nails. Works great for emergency repairs, too. Very practical. Meanwhile, in the ship's main corridor, Park was live streaming her tour of the alien vessel. Her audience had grown from 12 followers to 15, which she considered a major success. So this is the inside of an alien death ship, she said to her phone camera while walking past confused Zephyrian soldiers. The architecture is very dramatic. Lots of spikes and scary lighting. It's like someone watched too many horror movies and decided to base their interior design on them. The Wi-Fi is surprisingly good, though. One of the soldiers tried to look menacing by growling at her. Park turned the camera toward him. Oh, and here's one of the locals. Say hi, scary alien guy. The soldier, whose name was Krath and who had personally destroyed several planets, found himself waving awkwardly at the camera. He's actually pretty friendly once you get past all the growling and the armor made of sharp metal. I think it's a cultural thing. Down in the engine room, Rodriguez was having the time of his life. The Zephyrian engineers had never met anyone who understood machinery the way he did. More importantly, they had never met anyone who could fix things that were completely broken using nothing but spare parts and creative swearing. See, your problem is right here, Rodriguez said, pointing at a massive crystal formation that hummed with energy. This power coupling is vibrating at the wrong frequency. You need to either replace the harmonic dampener or just hit it with something heavy until it stops making that noise. Chief Engineer Zachmore looked at the readout. But that coupling has been making that noise for 40 years. Our engineers said it was within acceptable parameters. Your engineers don't know what they're talking about. Watch this. Rodriguez pulled out his trusty wrench and gave the crystal formation a sharp tap in exactly the right spot. The humming stopped immediately and the engine's efficiency increased by 12%. The Zephyrian engineers stared in amazement. How did you know to do that? Zachmore asked. Experience. I've been fixing broken stuff my whole life. You learn to listen to what the machine is telling you. This one was saying, please hit me with a wrench so I can work properly. Back in the processing chamber, Vexhall was beginning to understand why Admiral Thektar had been acting strange all day. These humans were completely impossible to process using standard conquest procedures. Question 20 asks about your species' religious beliefs, he said to Chen. Most humans believe in various things. I personally believe that any problem can be solved with enough coffee and determination. Also, that the universe has a sense of humor, and it's usually laughing at us. And question 21 asks about your species' greatest fears. Chen thought about this for a moment. Running out of coffee, having to fill out more paperwork than this, getting stuck in traffic, oh, and student loan debt. That one keeps a lot of people awake at night. What about death? Slavery? The destruction of your homeworld? Well, sure. Those would be bad, too. But they're not really everyday concerns, you know? It's hard to worry about cosmic annihilation when you're trying to figure out why the hyperspace drive makes that weird clicking noise. Vexhall set down his tablet. I need to speak with the Admiral. He found Thektar in his private chambers, staring out the window at the human cargo ship, which was still sitting in the landing bay. Several Zephyrian technicians were gathered around it, apparently fascinated by its construction. Sir, the processing is not going well, Vexhall reported. Define not going well. The humans are treating the entire procedure like a mild inconvenience. The female filled out all the conquest paperwork and asked if she could get copies for her records. The male found our engine room and has somehow improved our power output by 15%. The young one is broadcasting our ship's interior to something called social media and has convinced half our crew to appear in her videos. Thektar continued staring out the window. What do our psychologists say about them? Dr. Melthar examined their responses and concluded that humans appear to have evolved without a proper fear response. They seem to treat potentially lethal situations as minor problems to be solved rather than threats to be feared. That's impossible. Fear is the foundation of survival. Yes, sir. Dr. Melthar said the same thing. Then he asked to speak with the humans personally to understand how they function without dying constantly. Thektar watched as the human engineer emerged from underneath their ship covered in oil and grease, apparently having fixed something that was broken. The human looked satisfied with his work and immediately started examining one of the Zephyrian fighters parked nearby. Sir, Vexhal continued, what should we do with them? Thektar had conquered 1,000 worlds. He had reduced entire species to slavery. He had built an empire that spanned half the galaxy through fear and superior firepower. But he had never encountered a species that treated his empire like a minor travel delay. I don't know, he admitted. This was the first time in 300 years that Thektar the Merciless had admitted to not knowing something. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. Outside his window, Park was taking a selfie with a group of Zephyrian pilots, all of whom were trying to figure out how to use her phone camera. The sight of his elite warriors giggling over human technology made something inside Thektar's brain hurt. Sir, Vexhal asked, give me another hour to think about this. Word spread through the Zephyrian Empire faster than a computer virus in a college dorm. The news was simple and impossible to believe. There was a species that was not afraid of the mighty Zephyrian fleet. Even worse, they seemed to find the entire empire mildly inconvenient at best. On the conquered world of Meldavia, former Queen Issel received the news while working in the crystal mines that had once been her palace gardens. She dropped her mining tool and stared at the messenger. They asked for what? She whispered. Truck stops, your former majesty. The humans wanted to know if there were any good truck stops in Zephyrian space. Issel had ruled Meldavia for 60 years before the Zephyrians conquered her world. She had seen her armies destroyed, her cities burned, and her people enslaved. The sight of Thektar's fleet arriving in her system had made her weep with despair. These humans had asked for snacks. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship, Chen had set up what she called a cultural exchange program in the cargo bay. This mainly involved selling coffee and expired Earth snacks to curious Zephyrian crew members who had never experienced caffeine before. This coffee is remarkable, said Lieutenant Vorth, who was currently experiencing his first caffeine high. It makes everything seem possible. I feel like I could conquer 3-star systems before lunch. Yeah, that's normal, Chen said, handing him a second cup. Just wait until it wears off. Then you'll need more coffee to feel human again. Well, not human exactly, but you know what I mean. Park had become something of a celebrity among the younger Zephyrian crew members. Her social media account, which she had renamed Touring the Galaxy with Park, had grown to over 100 followers. Most of them were aliens who had never seen humans before and were fascinated by her complete lack of concern about being aboard a warship. Today's episode is about alien food, she announced to her phone camera while standing in the ship's cafeteria. So far, I've tried something called protein paste, which tastes like cardboard mixed with sadness, and nutritional gel, which is somehow worse. The local cuisine is very minimalist. I give it 2 stars out of 5. Points for efficiency, minus points for flavor. A group of Zephyrian soldiers had gathered behind her to watch the filming. They had never considered that their food might be bad. It was food. It provided nutrients. That seemed sufficient. What do humans eat? Asked Sergeant Klex. Oh, all kinds of stuff. Pizza, hamburgers, tacos, ice cream, food that actually tastes good. Eating should be enjoyable, not just functional. The concept of food being enjoyable was completely foreign to the Zephyrians. They ate to survive, not for pleasure. The idea that meals could be fun was revolutionary. Rodriguez had become the most popular person on the ship among the engineering crew. In just 2 days, he had fixed 17 different systems that had been broken for months or even years. His methods were unorthodox, but they worked. The trick to fixing anything, he explained to a group of fascinated alien engineers, is to understand what it wants to do and then help it do that thing. This plasma conduit wants to carry energy smoothly from point A to point B. Right now, it's fighting against this badly designed connector, so we fixed the connector and everyone's happy. Chief Engineer Zach Moore was taking notes on everything Rodriguez said. But our manuals say the connector is installed correctly. Your manuals are wrong. Whoever wrote them never actually worked on one of these ships. They just designed it on a computer and assumed it would work perfectly in real life. This was another revolutionary concept for the Zephyrians. Their society was built on rigid hierarchies and unquestioning obedience to authority. The idea that official manuals could be wrong was almost unthinkable. So what do you do when the manual is wrong? Zach Moore asked. You ignore the manual and fix the problem anyway. The universe doesn't care what the manual says. Physics is physics. News of the humans continued to spread throughout Zephyrian space. On the prison world of Thraxis, former President Jaylock heard that the humans had asked for directions to the nearest space highway. In the slave camps of Vorthon, workers whispered that the humans had complained about the lack of decent restaurants. In the sector, the psychological effect was profound. For 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had maintained control through fear and the promise of swift, terrible punishment for any resistance. Their reputation for merciless conquest was their greatest weapon. But how do you maintain a reputation? For being terrifying when someone treats you like a minor traffic inconvenience? Admiral Tektar was discovering this problem firsthand. He had called a meeting of his senior staff to discuss what to do with the humans. The meeting was not going well. Sir, perhaps we should simply destroy them and be done with it, suggested Commander Vexhal. That would normally be the logical course of action. Tektar agreed. But the problem is that news of their attitude has already spread throughout the Empire. If we destroy them now, it will look like we were threatened by 3 cargo haulers who weren't even trying to resist us. But, sir, they are just 3 individuals. How much damage could they do to our reputation? As if summoned by his question, Park's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. She had somehow gained access to the internal broadcast network and was giving her followers a tour of the bridge. And this is where they control the whole ship, her voice said cheerfully. It's very dark and dramatic, with lots of flashing, lights and scary music playing in the background. The command chair is way too big and has spikes on it for some reason. I think it's supposed to be intimidating, but it just looks uncomfortable. Tektar closed his eyes and counted to 10 in 3 different languages. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Word about the humans has reached the subjugated worlds. Some of the conquered populations are asking questions. What kind of questions? Questions like, if humans can treat the Empire like this, how scary can it really be? And why are we so afraid of people who get confused by coffee shop logistics? This was exactly what Tektar had been afraid of. The Zephyrian Empire controlled thousands of worlds and trillions of beings through carefully maintained fear. If that fear broke down, the entire empire could collapse within months. What about our psychological warfare division? Can they contain the information? Sir, the humans' social media broadcasts are being transmitted on frequencies we didn't know existed. Their communication technology is primitive but surprisingly effective. Also, our troops have started following the human, females' videos. Lieutenant Vorth has shared her coffee tutorial with half the ship. Tektar felt a headache forming behind his eyes. Get me a full psychological profile of these humans. I need to understand how their minds work. An hour later, Dr. Melthar presented his findings to the Admiral's staff. The Zephyrian chief psychologist looked like he had been awake for days and had consumed far too much coffee. "The humans are fascinating," he began. "They appear to have evolved on a world where nearly everything is trying to kill them. Yet they have developed a psychological response that treats mortal danger as a problem to be solved rather than a reason to panic." "Explain," Thektar demanded. "Their homeworld, Earth, is a death trap. Massive storms, earthquakes, predatory animals, poisonous plants, extreme weather, and countless other hazards. Most species would have gone extinct or never developed intelligence. Instead, humans developed the ability to remain calm under pressure and find practical solutions to impossible problems. That explains their lack of fear, but not their complete disregard for our authority." "Ah, that's even more interesting. Human society is based on the concept of individual liberty and questioning authority. They are literally raised from childhood to distrust anyone who claims to have power over them without earning it. Our standard intimidation tactics actually make them less likely to cooperate, not more." Vexhal leaned forward. "Are you saying that threatening them makes them more stubborn?" "Exactly. When a human encounters someone trying to dominate them, through fear, their instinctive response is to become sarcastic and uncooperative. It's a species-wide survival trait." Thektar stared at the report. "So we have encountered a species that evolution has specifically designed to be immune to our conquest methods." "In essence, yes, sir." The room fell silent. Outside, they could hear Rodriguez explaining to someone how to properly adjust plasma, flow regulators using nothing but a wrench and creative profanity. "Sir," Vexhal said quietly, "what do we do now?" The Zephyrian High Command made their decision after 3 days of debate, 17 cups of human coffee, and 1 complete mental breakdown by the Minister of Psychological Warfare. They would make an example of humanity by attacking Earth directly. The plan was simple: destroy the human homeworld in front of the entire galaxy, broadcast the annihilation across every communication channel in the Empire, and restore their reputation for unstoppable terror. Supreme Admiral Thektar led the largest fleet in Zephyrian history toward Earth. 3,000 warships, each capable of cracking a planet's crust, arranged in the traditional formation of doom. Every weapon was charged, every crew member was prepared for glorious battle, and every camera was ready to record humanity's final moments. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system and immediately received an automated message from something called Sol System Traffic Control. "Welcome to Sol System. All commercial and military vessels, please proceed to designated parking zones based on ship classification. Parking Zone 1 is for vessels under 1 kilometer. Zone 2 is for ships between 1 and 5 kilometers. Zone 3 is for anything bigger. Please maintain safe following distances and observe posted speed limits. Have a nice day." Admiral Thektar stared at the communications panel. "They want us to park?" "Sir," his navigation officer said carefully, "it appears that Earth's traffic control system has classified our invasion fleet as really big ships that need somewhere to sit." "Attention, Earth," Thektar broadcast, on all frequencies using his most terrifying voice. "This is Admiral Thektar the Merciless. You have harbored the humans who have insulted the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Prepare for total annihilation." The response came back immediately in a cheerful female voice. "Hi there, I'm Sarah from Sol Traffic Control. I've got you down for 3,000 ships, total length approximately 15,000 kilometers. You're going to need Parking Zone 7, which is behind the moon. Please follow the blue navigation beacons and maintain a speed of no more than 50,000 kilometers per hour in the inner system. Also, just so you know, we're having some construction work done on the main space lanes this week, so expect delays." Commander Vexhal looked at his tactical display. Blue lights had indeed appeared, leading them toward the far side of Earth's moon. "Sir, are we following the parking instructions?" "No, We are not following the parking instructions. We are here to destroy their planet. Understood, sir. But the navigation beacons are really well designed, very user-friendly. The fleet moved toward Earth, ignoring the traffic control system and preparing for battle. This turned out to be a mistake, because Earth's approach to planetary defense was exactly as practical and unconventional as everything else humans did. Instead of meeting them with a defensive fleet or desperate surrender broadcasts, Earth responded by completely ignoring the invasion force and going about its normal business. Ships launched from the planet carrying cargo and passengers. Space stations continued their regular operations. A group of human children on a school field trip to Luna Base pressed their faces against the windows to watch the pretty crystal ships. Sir, the tactical officer reported, Earth's defense grid has not activated. They don't appear to have noticed that we're invading them. That's impossible. We're the largest fleet in galactic history. Yes, sir, but according to our scans, Earth's military forces are all busy with something called terrestrial operations. They appear to be fighting each other over various political disagreements. Admiral Thektar felt his sanity beginning to crack. They're fighting each other while we're invading them? Yes, sir. Also, sir, we're receiving a communication from Luna Base. Put it through. A young human voice came over the speakers. She sounded maybe 17 years old and spoke with the casual authority of someone who had never been told that talking to alien invaders was supposed to be scary. Hey there, Crystal Ship people. This is Intern Kelly from Luna Base Systems. Control. Just wanted to let you know that you're drifting into the shipping lanes between Earth and Mars. Could you maybe move about 50,000 kilometers to your left? We've got a cargo convoy coming through in about an hour, and your ships are blocking their route. We are here to destroy your planet, Thektar roared into the communicator. Oh, okay. Well, could you maybe do that after the convoy passes? The cargo ships don't have very good steering, and if they hit one of your ships, it'll mess up everyone's insurance paperwork, Vexhal whispered. Sir, she's treating our invasion fleet like a traffic jam. I can hear that, Commander. Thektar tried a different approach. Human child, do you not understand that your species is about to be exterminated? Yeah, I heard you the first time. Look, I'm just an intern, okay? I don't make policy decisions about extermination and stuff, but I do make decisions about space traffic, and you guys are really messing up the flow here. Could you please just move a little bit to the left? The Admiral realized he was arguing about parking spaces with a teenage intern while commanding the most powerful military force in galactic history. Something was very wrong with this scenario. Sir, another officer interrupted, we have a problem. What, now? One of our dreadnoughts has lost power. The Void Destroyer is drifting toward Luna Base. On the main screen, they watched as the massive Zephyrian warship slowly tumbled toward the human moon base. This should have been catastrophic for both ships. Instead, a small human maintenance vessel approached the dreadnought and extended what appeared to be a towing cable. Attention drifting crystal ship, came a voice over the radio. This is Luna Base Recovery. Looks like you've got some engine trouble. We'll tow you to the repair station. Try not to worry about the bill. We've got good rates for emergency service. They're going to tow the Void Destroyer? Vexahal asked in amazement. They watched as the tiny human ship, which was maybe 1,000th, the size of the dreadnought, somehow managed to get a towing cable attached and began pulling the massive warship toward Luna Base. The Void Destroyer's crew was too shocked to resist. Sir, the communications officer said, Luna Base is asking if our other ships need any mechanical assistance. They're offering repair services, refueling, and something called duty-free shopping. That's when things got really strange. A human civilian transport approached the fleet broadcasting on standard greeting frequencies. Hello there, visitors. Welcome to the Sol system. I'm Captain Martinez with Solar Tours. Would your crews be interested in a guided tour of the inner planets? We're running a special this week. 3 planets for the price of 2. And we throw in the asteroid belt for free. Very educational. They want to give us a tour? Thektar asked weakly. Sir, Approximately 30 of our ships are requesting permission to take the tour, his communications officer reported. The crews say they've never seen an alien star system before, and they're curious about human architecture. Absolutely not. But it was too late. Several of his ships were already following the human tour guide toward Venus, their crews broadcasting excitement about seeing new worlds. The mighty Zephyrian invasion fleet was turning into a tourist expedition. The final blow to Thektar's sanity came when intern Kelly from Luna Base called back. "Crystal Ship Admiral Guy, I just talked to my supervisor and she says you can't destroy Earth today because we haven't filed the proper environmental impact paperwork with the Solar Safety Commission. Planet destruction requires at least 30 days' notice and a full ecological survey. But if you want, I can put you on the waiting list for next month. How does the 15th sound? Admiral Thektar, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, destroyer of civilizations, bringer of cosmic terror, found himself checking his calendar to see if he was free on the 15th. Sir, Vexhal said gently, perhaps we should reconsider our approach to this species. Yes, Thektar said in a voice that suggested his spirit had been completely broken. Perhaps we should. The revolution began with a news interview. Park, who had somehow gained access to the Zephyrian fleet's main communication array, was live-streaming what she thought was just another casual conversation with Admiral Thektar. Her follower count had grown to over 50,000 beings across the galaxy, most of whom were subjugated aliens who had never seen anyone talk to their oppressors so casually. So, Admiralty, Park said, holding her phone up to record while, sitting in what had once been the most feared command center in the galaxy, tell my viewers about your empire. What's your basic deal here? Thektar, who had not slept in 3 days and had consumed enough human coffee to kill a small elephant, stared at the camera with the hollow eyes of a being whose entire worldview had collapsed. We conquer worlds, he said automatically. We bring order to chaos. We eliminate the weak and make the galaxy stronger through our dominance. Okay, but why though? What's the point of all that conquering? Are you guys happy doing this? The question hit Thektar like a physical blow. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever asked him if he was happy. The concept of happiness had never been part of Zephyrian military philosophy. Happiness is irrelevant. We serve the Empire. The Empire serves order. That sounds super depressing. Also, can we talk about your environmental impact? Like how much energy does it take to run 3,000 massive spaceships? Have you guys ever considered renewable energy? Solar power is getting really efficient these days. Across the galaxy, beings who had lived in terror of the Zephyrian Empire for generations watched their most feared enemy being gently interviewed about his carbon footprint by a human, who seemed genuinely concerned about his well-being. On the conquered world of Meldavia, former Queen Issel watched the broadcast with growing amazement. The human was treating Thektar like a misguided person who needed career counseling, not a cosmic tyrant who had destroyed countless civilizations. Admiral, when's the last time you took a vacation? Park asked. You look really stressed. Have you considered therapy? My cousin Jake went through a really dark period where he was super aggressive and controlling, but therapy helped him work through his issues. What is therapy? It's when you talk to someone about your problems and feelings. It helps you understand why you do the things you do. Like, why do you feel the need to dominate everyone you meet? Did someone hurt you when you were little? Are you trying to prove something to your parents? The interview was being broadcast live to every screen in Zephyrian space. Trillions of conquered beings watched their terrifying overlord admit that he didn't know what therapy was, and that he had never considered whether his life choices made him happy. I think maybe you guys just need some better hobbies, Park continued. Conquering worlds seems like it would get really boring after a while. Have you ever tried art, music, cooking? When's the last time you did something just because you enjoyed it? Thektar opened his mouth to answer, then realized he couldn't remember the last time he had done anything for enjoyment. His entire existence was duty, conquest, and the expansion of Zephyrian power. I don't know. That's when the revolution truly began. Not with violence or heroic speeches, but with the simple realization that their oppressors were just deeply unhappy people who had never learned to find joy in life. On Meldavia, Queen Issel stood up from her mining equipment and walked toward the Zephyrian overseer who had been guarding her work crew. "Commander Zalox," she said calmly, "when's the last time you were happy?" The commander, who had been watching the interview on his portable screen, looked up with confusion. "What? Happy, content, satisfied with your life. When's the last time you felt that way?" Zalox had never been asked this question either. He thought about it for a long moment. I achieved a commendation for efficient slave management last year. That was satisfying. But were you happy? Did it bring you joy? I don't understand the question. Around the galaxy, similar conversations were starting. Conquered beings, inspired by Park's casual approach to questioning authority, began asking their oppressors simple questions about life satisfaction and personal fulfillment. The psychological effect was devastating to the Zephyrian occupation forces. Back on the flagship, Park was wrapping up her interview. "Admiral T, I think you should consider taking some time off. Maybe visit Earth. We've got great beaches, good food, and lots of therapy options. You seem like you could use a break from all this conquering stuff." That actually sounds pleasant," Thektar admitted. "See? You just need to expand your horizons a little. Life's too short to spend it being angry and scary all the time." The broadcast ended, but the damage was done. Within hours, reports were flooding in from across the Empire. Zephyrian commanders were experiencing what their psychologists could only describe as existential crises. Soldiers were questioning the point of their missions. Some were laying down their weapons and asking conquered populations for restaurant recommendations. On the prison world of Thraxis, former President Jalok approached his Zephyrian guard with a simple question. "Sergeant Krex, what do you want to do with your life?" I want to serve the Empire," Krex replied automatically. "No, I mean, what do you want to do? If you could do anything, what would make you happy?" Krex thought about this for a long time. "I always wanted to learn how to cook," he finally admitted. "My grandmother used to make these wonderful soup analogs, but she died before she could teach me the recipe." "Why don't you learn how to cook then?" "Because I'm a soldier. Soldiers don't cook." "Says who?" The question hung in the air like a revelation. "Says who, indeed?" The collapse of the Zephyrian Empire happened faster than anyone thought possible. It wasn't destroyed by superior firepower or strategic brilliance. It fell apart because Park's interview had asked the one question that authoritarian systems can't answer. Why are you doing this, and does it make you happy? Within a week, Zephyrian forces across the galaxy were abandoning their posts. Some returned to their homeworld to figure out what they actually wanted to do with their lives. Others stayed on the worlds they had conquered, but as residents rather than occupiers. A surprising number enrolled in cooking classes. Admiral Thektar formally dissolved the Zephyrian Empire in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. He announced that he was retiring from military service to pursue what he called personal growth and possibly learning to paint. "I want to thank the human park for helping me realize that I have been deeply unhappy for several centuries," he said in his final address. "I encourage all former Imperial forces to take some time to consider what actually brings them joy. The galaxy has enough suffering without us adding to it deliberately." The ceremony was interrupted when Rodriguez finally managed to get the coffee machine on the rusty bucket working properly. The celebration that followed involved most of the former Zephyrian fleet and lasted for 3 days. Chen, meanwhile, had finally found directions to the nearest truck stop. It was now located in what used to be the Zephyrian Administrative Center for the Outer Rim territories, The new management served excellent coffee and had very clean bathrooms. "So," Chen said to Park as they prepared to finally deliver their cargo, "how does it feel to accidentally overthrow a galactic empire?" Park looked up from her phone, where she was editing a video titled, "How I Accidentally Started a Revolution by Asking About Therapy." "It was okay, I guess. Kind of surreal. My follower count is up to 2 million now, which is cool. And Rodriguez, how does it feel to know that your mechanical advice helped liberate thousands of worlds?" Rodriguez emerged from under the ship, wiping his hands on a rag. "The coffee machine is finally working properly," he announced. "Want some?" "That's not what I asked." "Oh, the liberation thing? That's nice. But seriously, you should try this coffee. I think I finally got the temperature regulation perfect." 6 months later, Chen received a letter from Admiral Thektar. He had opened a small cafe on a peaceful world in the former empire. The letter included a photo of him wearing an apron and smiling while serving soup to customers. He looked genuinely happy for the first time in centuries. "Thank you for teaching me that there are better ways to live," the letter said. Also, Rodriguez was right about the engine coolant issue. "My ship runs much more efficiently now." Chen posted the letter on the bulletin board of their new favorite truck stop, right next to thank you notes from 17 other former galactic conquerors who had discovered the joy of pursuing their actual interests instead of trying to dominate the universe. Park's social media account had become required viewing for several interstellar diplomacy courses. Her casual approach to questioning authority had been dubbed the Park Method and was being studied by political scientists across the galaxy. Rodriguez had written a technical manual called Basic Ship Maintenance, a common-sense guide to not dying in space. It had become the best-selling engineering text in 12 star systems. As for the Rusty Bucket, it continued hauling cargo across the galaxy, completely unchanged except for the coffee machine, which finally worked correctly. The crew remained magnificently unimpressed by their accidental role in galactic history. "You know what?" Chen said, as they prepared for another routine cargo.